The word migration has come from the Latin word migrare, which means going from one place to another. In birds, migration means two-way journey, onward journey from the home to the new places, and again, the back journey from the new places to the home. This movement occurs during the particular period of the year, and the bird usually follow the same route. According to the L. Thompson in 1922, bird migration may be described as changes of habitat periodically recurring and alternating in direction, which tend to secure optimum environmental conditions at all times. Birds have thus evolved a highly efficient means for traveling swiftly over long distance with a great economy of energy. There are several causes of migration being identified by the previous study, which is the first one. There are widely accepted that the impulse to migrate in the birds is possibly due to the instinctive behavior, and the migration toward the breeding ground is associated with gonadal changes, which be influenced by the other conditions such as seasonal variation. Another causes of migration is scarcity of food, shortening of daylight, and increase of cool are believed to stimulate the migration of bird depending on two important factors, the stimulus and the guidance. The photoperiodism is one of the causes too. The increase of day length induces the bird migration. The day length affects pituitary and pineal gland and also cause growth of gonad, which secrete sex hormones that are the stimulus for migration. Last but not least, the bird that take part in migration or follow a more or less definite goal evidently possess an inherited instinct. Both the direction and the goal must have been implemented in the bird's genetic coded when the population can adjust to a particular location or environment. All birds do not migrate, but all species are subject to periodical movement of varying extent. The birds which live in the northern part of the hemisphere have a greatest migratory power. So there were 9 types of migration. The first type of migration is longitudinal migration, which occurs when the birds migrate from east to the west and vice versa. For example, starling birds or Sturnus vulgaris is a resident of East Europe and West Asia, which migrate towards the Atlantic coast. The second type is latitudinal migration, which defines the movement of birds from north to south and vice versa. For example, we have marine birds, which is known as great shearwater, which breed on the small island and migrate as far as Greenland in May and return after a few months. And another example is penguin, which migrate by swimming over a distance of few hundred miles. Then we have attitudinal migration, which occur in mountainous region. There are many birds that inhabit in the mountain peak migrate to the lowland during winter. For example, we have golden plover, or known as pluvialis, which start from Arctic tundra and goes up to the plain of Argentina, covering a distance of 11,250 kilometers. For the next one is partial migration, where all the members of the group of birds do not take part in migration. Only several members of the group take part in the migration. For example, we have is Coutts bird. In contrast, the total migration is when all the members of the species of birds take part in the migration. So for the next migration is vagrant or irregular migration. It occurs when there are some of the birds dispersed to a short or long distance for safety and food. There are another example, which is black stork, which is known as Ciconia nigra. We have glossy ibis, which is known as Pligadis falcinalis, and then we have the spotted eagle, known as Aquila clangga, and last but not least, a bee eater, which is Merops apiaster. There are some birds that migrate at different seasons of the year for food or breeding, so we call that seasonal migration, which is, for the example, is swiftbird and swallow. They migrate from south to the north during summer, and there are birds that call summer visitor, while the birds that like snowbooting, redwing, or shortlock, which migrate from north to south during winter, they are called winter visitor. So for the next type of migration is diurnal migration, where the bird migrate during daytime for food. These birds are called diurnal birds and generally migrate in flocks. For example, we have crow, we have geese, hawks, and pelican birds. Last but not least, we have nocturnal bird, which is defined as the bird that migrate in the darkness, also known as nocturnal bird. Usually, they have small size of body for pasturing groups like sparrow and warblesbird. So the darkness of the night gives them protection from their enemies. So there are several fun facts about the migrations bird, which is the first one is that there are at least 4,000 species of bird that are regular migrant, which is all about 40% from the total number of birds in the world. And then the bird can reach the great height as they migrate. So the bar-headed geese are the highest flying migratory birds, which are reaching the altitude up to 5.5 miles above sea level while flying over the Himalayas in India. Migration is very important, especially when it provides ecosystem benefit that include the pest control, pollination of plants, and serve as food source for other wildlife. However, migration also can bring the disadvantage towards the migratory birds. So there are 4 disadvantages of bird migratory, which is the first one is there will be many young of birds that are not able to reach the destination because they die during the course of the continuous and tiresome journey. As you know that migration can take place more than 100,000 miles at one time, which is very consuming a lot of energy and time. So it's very impossible for the chicks of the bird to migrate from one places to another places if they are not mature enough. The second one is sudden changes in the climate, such as storm and hurricane. Strong current of wind, fog are causes for the death of sizable number of migrants. As you know that this is one of the obstacles for the birds to break through during the migration. Number 3. Sometimes man-made high tower and lighthouses cause death of migratory birds. As you know that birds have their own aviation heat during the migration. So sometimes the skyscraper, for example, like the high building that be made by the human, can be an obstacle for the birds in their migration path so it can cause the death for the migratory birds once they hit the building. Last but not least, is men themselves are responsible for the death of the migrant. They shoot at this poor bird just for their own leisure and amusement. As you know that there are kind of traditional culture, especially in Europe, where they hunt the birds in the forest. So this will give a high risk for the migratory birds when they migrate from one places to another places. So there are highly risk to be killed by the hunter during the migration.